How are you all doing? Well, it's been 3 months of this strangeness. Some things are kind of getting back to normal and other things are way off, aren't they? And I'm not quite sure how long it's going to be before I'll be able to go out there and make a living from being out on the streets, or when the air raid shelters will reopen and Bramall Hall and Ordsall Hall and all those sort of places. So for now, we're just going to keep doing these, and thanks to your generosity in the past weeks, it's keeping us ticking over. And if you can donate tonight, please do. These take us about 2 weeks to research, so it's about 2 weeks work you're seeing right now tonight. So please donate if you can. It's been great the past few months, and in regards to the videos, not what's going on in the world, obviously. And I'm learning so much about Manchester that I never knew before, and I hope it's really entertaining for you too. So over to Flecky for tonight's one in Middleton. Ooh.
It's Flecky, it's Friday, it's Flecky Bennett Friday, it's Flecky, it's Friday, it's Flecky'S Fright night.
Hello my friends, how are you all? Hope you're well tonight, hope you can see me good, hope you can hear me good. Let's have a bit of dry ice. Oh, let's start as we mean to go on, shall we? Oh, there we go. We have one of them oscillating fans, and Buggerlugs is boiling, but I said you can't have that on because it's blowing up, so she's got it on a setting, so it doesn't seem to last very long, the fog, but as long as she's... Anyway, let's have a look at little Buggerlug. She's behind the camera now, let's have a look at her. There she is, and she's operating the desk as usual, and she looks like Gypsy Rose Buggerlugs tonight with a little bandana on. So I hope you're all well, and it's good to be back live on Facebook, and this week it's all about Middleton. Oh yes, Middleton. And do you know why it's called Middleton? Dead easy, because it's the middle town. It's the town in the middle. In the middle of where? Well, in the middle of, well, it's between Manchester and Rochdale, and that's what it means. Middleton, Middletown. Oh yes. And it's got some amazing areas, but it's just all around one little bit. All the best stories are in one little area, and it's known as the Golden Cluster. I thought that was a breakfast cereal, is it not? Is it Golden Clusters?
No.
I've heard of something like Golden
Funny nut clusters.
Nut clusters. Well, that's probably right. No. If you're from Middleton, that's fine. Yes, the Golden Cluster, the area in the centre where all the medieval stuff is, and that's what I'm mostly going to be talking about tonight. But first of all, the Middletonians have a very strange nickname, and they are called Moonrakers. And I thought, only Moonraker I know is the James Bond film, you know what I mean? But the Middletonians are known as Moonrakers, and it's a fantastic story. Let me tell you all about it. So, my friends, hang on a second. That's it. Now, they're called Moonrakers because one night, many years ago, by the way, many years ago, two fellas have been having a good drink round the pubs, because there's some great pubs in Middleton. Like there is on all the places that I cover in these fortnightly episodes. There's lots of drinking places, and Middleton's no exception. These two men have been out and a right good skinful. We're going to start to think about making their way back to their wives, and they thought, oh, it's a bit late, let's take a shortcut. So they went across some fields, and they came to a pond, basically, a big pond, and they could see right in the middle of the pond was what looked like a round, full Lancashire cheese. Have you ever had crumbly Lancashire? Oh, it's good tackle. This big round, crumbly Lancashire ball of cheese. And you know it's like after you've had a few scoops, you're a bit peckish, aren't you? And there was no kebab shops, no pizza shops in them days, so they were absolutely bloody starving. So what they did, they thought we're going to have to get it out of the pond here. We're going to have to get it out, but it was right in the middle. They couldn't reach it with their arms, so they had to walk around. They found a little bit of a farm, and they found some old rakes, and they got two of them, And they both stood there and they're both leaning out. It's like 3D this, watch this. Leaning out. Leaning out
hang on,
into...
Hang on, go back, do it again. Leaning out.
Leaning out. Oh, leaning out. Get back, give me an headache. Oof, that's no good, is it? They were leaning out right as far as they could. They were trying to get this bloody cheese. They were starving, trying to get it back into the bloody riverbank. Oh, they couldn't do it for love nor money. They were falling over. They were falling into the pond. They were starving, hungry. And then this, well, sober gentleman came walking past and said, "What the hell are you doing?" They said, "Well, there's a bloody cheese in the middle of this pond. We're starving." He said, "That's the reflection of the moon." The reflection of the moon. Can you believe this? They've been raking at the reflection of the moon. And he pointed out to it, said, "Bloody hell, you two, you're a couple of moonrakers. Let's have a look at a picture of moonrakers." Oh, yeah, there they are. And that's that guy walking past telling these two drunken fools about it. Now, so it's a really interesting name, isn't it? What a great story. And they actually built, or they had commissioned a fountain for the centre of Middleton. And it's been there for some time, and it's garden rakes. Let's have a look at it. As you can see right now, stay on that picture. There's these garden rakes. There's 3 of them for some reason, which doesn't make much sense because there are only 2 people. But I suppose it helps it to stand up. It cost £20,000, and it's a fountain. And apparently they forgot to plumb it in for water before they actually installed it. So it's been an eyesore of Middleton ever since. And apparently most people in Middleton don't know why they're called moonrakers. So people were looking at this thing going, "What the hell does this mean?" And the council said, "No, we're not putting a plaque to say what it means. You should already know." Anyway, they've given in now and put a big plaque there explaining what moonrakers are all about. So there you go. Middletonians are called moonrakers. And that's the proper name from Middletonians. Now, there's quite a few famous people from Middleton. I only talk about the things that I like, really. You know what I mean? There's lots of historians and stuff and historical things. But the 2 that stand out for me, because I'm a Man United fan. Don't turn off. I'm a Man United fan. And Paul Scholes, let's have a look at Paul. Paul Scholes played for Man United in England, and now he's a manager. And he's a Middletonian. And my very favourite actor, Steve Coogan. Probably the most famous person from Middleton right now. Alan Partridge himself. Ha ha! Ha ha! I'm stood on a spike. I love Steve Coogan. Come over here a second. I know it might not look like it, but I'm a fully qualified trained actor. I went to drama school, and I went to the same drama school as Steve Coogan, Julie Walters, Caroline O'Hearn. Oh yes, that's why I was trained to be behind the camera. So that's why I'm so at home with this. Ooh, back to that. Yes, so they're the Middletonians. Now, when famous people used to come to Middleton many years ago, they used to all stay at a place called Hopwood Hall. And it was run by Edmund Hopwood at the time that I'm going to talk about. And a couple of guests which stayed with him. He was the host, Edmund Hopwood, at Hopwood Hall. And a couple that stayed with him at the time were Byron. And let's have a look at that. There's a picture here that I created for you with my skills. There's Byron on the left of the screen as you're looking at it, Lord Byron. And he stayed at Hopwood Hall for 10 days, and he wrote a very famous piece of poetry there, one that made his name. Let's go back to the picture again, because there's another person on that picture which I haven't talked about yet. But going back to Lord Byron, he actually gave some money to the to have a fireplace built inside Hopwood Hall, and it's called, guess what it's called? The Byron fireplace, of all things. And that guy next to him, that's Guy Fawkes. Now, I'm going to be doing an Hodsall Hall eventually when we get back to normal, and that is where he's supposed to have planned the gunpowder plot at Hodsall Hall, but he stayed at Hopwood Hall for a few days on his way. So he was entertained by the man himself, Edmund Hopwood. So a couple of famous people there. Let me tell you about Mr. Hopwood. Very strange man indeed. I think we'll have a colour change here. Hang on a minute, let me change the colours. I think we'll have a bit of dry ice, hang on. Oh yes, shit's getting real, as they say. This is an adult performance. And there's a bit of sex and violence coming up for you people that enjoy a bit of that. Ooh. So yes, Edmund Hopwood, the guy that was the Lord of the Manor when them two people stayed there, his full name was Edmund the Puritan Hopwood. Ooh, sounds like some kind of wrestler, doesn't he? A modern kind of wrestler. And he was a witch hunter. Yes, a witch hunter. I'll say that again. Witch hunter. Cut that out in the edit later. Witch hunter. Oh, yes. So, yes, what were witch hunters? Well, people that used to hunt witches. The clue's in the title. But what was his actual job? Well, let me tell you. If you, it's usually like a woman who had any kind of special abilities, or if you had a neighbour that you didn't get on with, you could say, accuse them of being a witch, basically. You could accuse anybody of being a witch. And then they would be arrested, and somebody like Hopwood would come along and he would start to interrogate you. So just imagine you're a witch. And I know there's a few of you out there, not mentioning names. And first of all, he would take the woman into a room and make her strip off all her clothes so she was Billy Bollock naked. Okay, Billy Bollocks. And then he will get out his pricker. I said pricker, not prick. Keep it clean, my friends, keep it clean. He would get out his pricker. And he would look all over the... Oh, first of all, he would shave all the hair off. Head and body hair. Nothing left, as bold as brass. Completely naked. And he'd start to search her body in great detail, dirty bugger, and he went all over the place, under her arms, everywhere, looking for birthmarks or moles, anything like that, because they were believed to be the devil's mark. And that's where witches were supposed to suckle. You know, the familiars, the cats and stuff, they used to drink blood from them, these like little nipples they used to call them, but they were devil's marks. So he'd walk around, look all around the body, looking for these devil's marks. And if he found one, well, they were a bit of sleight of hand, a bit like a magician, were these witch finders. They had a special pricking instrument. It was called witch pricking. I think it's a great name for a band. Witch prickers. And that's what they were called. And it had a sharp end, but on the other end that you concealed in your hand was a blunt end. A blunt prick. So there was a sharp prick and a blunt prick. I think I need a drink. Hang on a minute. Get me over here a minute. Hang on. Cheers, everybody. It's not an official break, that one. I just want to have a drink. Now, let's get back to witch pricking. Right. So there was a dull side of the prick and a sharp side of the prick. And what he would do to demonstrate to anybody that was watching, he would get the dull side, the sharp side, and prick it into the witch's hand or whatever, so blood would start to come out. And he'd say, now I will prick the devil's mark. And he would quickly turn it in his hand so they couldn't see that the blunt end was out. And they used to say that if I prick the devil's mark, it will not bleed. And he'd prick it, and obviously the blunt end wouldn't be going in, and it wouldn't bleed. And then she'd be guilty. She'd be a witch. If he couldn't find a witch mark, that's a birthmark or a mole or anything like that, then he would take out a blunt knife and cut into the witch's arm with it. And obviously it was blunt, so it wouldn't cut her, and he'd say, she does not bleed. Guilty. Oh yes, well, loads of good ways of getting them. So if they survived all that, and he couldn't find any marks, and they weren't bleeding, or well, you know what they used to do then, don't you? Dunking the witch on ducking stools. And that's where they used to put them on a stool, drop them in water, and if they drowned, they were innocent. But if they survived, they were guilty. And of course, they were taken and burnt for being a witch. Let's have a look at the burning of a witch. Oh, yes, there you go. So it wasn't much fun being a witch back in them days, was it really? And yes, that's what Hopwood of Hopwood Hall used to do. He was a witch hunter. So I think we'll have a change of colour, because I think the right colour for this is definitely green. Let me change all my little lights. So how you doing, everybody? You all okay? Good. Now,
everyone here okay?
Can everybody hear okay? Well, they'd complain if they
Checking.
couldn't. Well, yeah, I think you can. I think you'd be saying you can't if you couldn't, wouldn't you? So, from witches to boggarts. I absolutely love that word. Boggarts. Ooh, boggarts. Yeah, now we had some boggart story on the Ashton one, but there's a place just outside Middleton, and it's sort of a forest, a dark forest, a sinister looking forest called Boggart Hall Clough. Boggart Hall Clough. And it's named after the boggart that lives there. Now, let me tell you all about it. Now, it's a very supernatural place, is Boggart Hall Clough. They believe there is a woman that committed suicide, a young woman in the lake there, and her ghost is supposed to haunt the woods. There's some steps. There's supposed to be 99 steps. Shall we have a look at the steps? There's 99 steps, and once you get to the very end of them, you're supposed to make a wish, and it comes true. And there's also believed to be a seat that's the devil's seat. So there are the things which goes on round there, but it gets its name from a boggart. Now, people were terrified of boggarts, so like a big monster, really. And there was a disappearance of young children in that area, and they blamed it on the boggart from Boggart Hall Clough. And people were terrified of it, and it used to hide in sort of like an outlet with a little bridge. Let's have a look at it. I've done a little illustration for you. That's actually the hall which it's named after, which the boggart is hiding inside, and that's what it gets named on, Boggart Hall Clough. Now, as you can see, he's a good-looking, handsome dude, and he used to terrorise people in Middleton. In the centre of the woods was a farmhouse. Let's have a look at the farmhouse. There's a little old black and white picture. It was demolished a long time ago, and he terrorised the family that lived there. So yes, you'll know about it if you got a boggart. Now, first of all, they reported that the boggart was very helpful. It used to do the washing up, it used to tidy up. I've got my own little boggart here. She's called Buggerlugs, but it begins with B. What's up? She's not even smiling. That's 3 months being locked in with me. Yes, I've got my own little boggart. Well, this boggart, yeah, I do the cooking. I do all the cooking. Don't be saying I'm sexist. I thank you. Yes, it did the cooking and it did the cleaning for a while, and they were quite happy with it. Then it started to turn a bit nasty, and this boggart started to make all their milk turn sour, and then it made the family dog turn lame, and then it started to attack them in the bedroom, and it used to pull the sheets off in the middle of the night and put a cold hand on their face. Again, Buggerlugs has a tendency of doing that. I've got my own boggart. But they put up with these things until it started at night time banging on the walls and laughing hysterically. Bang, 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 bang. They thought we're going to have to do something about this. So there was some things you could try if you had a boggart. You could put a horseshoe on your front door. That should stop the boggart entering your house completely. But if it did get in, you could put salt around. So around the outside of the bedroom door, they put a circle of salt because they couldn't cross that apparently. But this boggart was a tough boggart. So it just ignored them. It carried on doing all its badness. And they actually said, I'm sorry, but we can't take this. We're going to leave. And it said to them, if you leave, I will follow you wherever you go, and I will live with you again. So they carried on living there until they died. So the boggart's still there in Boggart Hall Clough, hiding in under that little bridge. There was a brave man once who had a fight with the boggart. Oh yes, throwing punches at it, he managed to knock the boggart's tooth out. And that boggart's tooth can be seen to this very day. Here's a picture of it. That gives you a rough idea of the size of the boggart, because that's its tooth. And yes, but then the boggart did get its revenge and had this man for breakfast. Now, my friends, let's have a drink. Raise your glasses, everybody. Let's have a raise your glasses moment. Yes, yes, cheers, everybody. Have you got something nice to drink tonight? Oh, that's nice what you're drinking there, isn't it? I'm on, well, I usually have a glass of wine because it gives me windy pops, anything else, but I'm risking it tonight because I've got, it's called Aperol Spritz. I've got we went to Venice last year before all this chaos, and I thought everybody was drinking Lucasade, and he said it's Aperol Spritz, and I thought, oh, don't fancy that, and it's bloody delicious. Anyway, raise your glasses, everybody. Cheers, everybody. Yes, so that's Aperol Spritz. The Boggart had the people for breakfast. I'll put that down here so I don't knock it off the table all over all the equipment. But I think it's time for a dance. Are you dancing? Are you dancing? I'm asking. Let's have a little dance with these people. And this dance company are called Boggart's Breakfast. Have a watch. So, yes, why have I got some dancers on, you're probably asking? Well, listen, they're not Morris dancers. They're a bit more hardcore than Morris dancers. And it was just when I was searching for Boggarts, I came across this dance group called Boggart's Breakfast. And then, when I was doing the Middleton one, you see there was two different groups there. The second group are a group called the Thieving Magpies. And they perform in Middleton. Now, excuse me, it's that Aperol Spritz. Yeah, they perform in Middleton, the Thieving Magpies. And I like them because they do a lot of screaming, hey, and they bang these sticks together. Not like Morris dancers with the little handkerchiefs and bells. They bang the sticks really hard. And banging of the sticks is supposed to scare away evil spirits. And they used to believe that winter was the evil spirit and summer was a good spirit, so they're scaring away winter. But they really do remind me of that sort of thing. It puts the willies up me, really, because it reminds me of the Wicker Man, that kind of thing, really. So it is a bit spooky. But let me just tell you about the name Thieving Magpies. Now, we have two magpies that come to visit us in the garden, and I think they're brilliant birds. I found out they're really, really intelligent. They've got one of the biggest brains. It's almost equal to the size we are for brain. The size of our brain and our bodies is equal to what the magpie's brain and body is in scale. Because there's some big creatures with really small brains, but magpies are really clever. And I don't know if you're superstitious or not, but I always salute the magpie. And what do you do, Emma? Do you say something?
Yeah, morning Mr. Magpie, how's your wife?
Morning Mr. Magpie, how's your wife? All that nuts. One for sorrow, two for joy, all that sort of stuff. But I always salute them. And I thought, why are people... because they're lovely birds, I think. So why are people afraid of them? And it was the church. The actual church terrified people of magpies. And so much so that people, if they saw one, more than today, they would do the sign of the cross and they'd spit over their own shoulders 3 times, which is easier said than done, isn't it? It must have been spit all down the backs. But you spat that over your shoulder 3 times, did the sign of the cross, and that stopped the curse of the magpie. Because the church told you that magpies were really evil things. Have you had a look at a magpie? Let's have a look so we can all remind what a magpie looks like. Oh, that's the one. Beautiful looking bird. So, the church in this country used to tell people that the magpie had a drop of the devil's blood in its tongue. And if you were to pierce that and it would drip out of its tongue, it would start to speak in human words. So people were absolutely bloody terrified. But my favourite is what the French church told everybody in France. And I can't look at a magpie now again. Let's have a look at a magpie again. Just have a look at it. What does it look like to you? Just have a think about it. Have a look what it looks like. Right? Now, I'll never look at them the same again. They used to tell everybody that a magpie is the reincarnation of evil nuns. And we all know an evil nun, don't we? Let's have a look at her. Oh yeah, she's very popular at the moment. See how they look like a magpie? It's exactly the same. And they used to say they are evil nuns reincarnated. Fantastic. Fantastic. Well, I think it's time for a bit of a red light now. Oh, just like Roxanne. We like a bit of red light, don't we? So, yes, magpies. So I don't know if you noticed, but when we saw the thieving magpies outside the actual dancing around, I'm just looking for my red light. Is it not there anywhere?
Yeah, you just had your hand on it. See it? Here.
I can't see it.
There. Right. You.
I got it. Sorry, everybody. Let's have a bit more dry ice while we're on about it. So yes, when we watched that second dance group, the thieving magpies jumping around and banging, they were dancing outside a pub called the Ring of Bells Public House in Middleton. Now it's a very famous public house, and before it appeared, I was talking that it was a bit like them dancers, a bit like the Wicker Man. And on that site, before the Ring of Bells pub was built, there was a Druid temple. Come have a look at a Druid temple in action. Druid temples, they used to do human sacrifices, and that was on that very site before the pub was built. And part of a Druid sacrifice was the Wicker Man, where you'd be put inside, they put somebody inside and set fire. So the Ring of Bells was built on a site of a Druid temple, so that's pretty bloody terrifying. It's not a good start, is it? And the Ring of Bells is a really old pub, dates back to the 1700s. The same parts of it predate that, but on average it's 1700s. And it's haunted by the ghost of a cavalier. It's called Edward, and he's the sad cavalier. Now inside the pub you'll see there's a seating area, and that's the pub you're looking at right now. Just have a look at it. That's an old picture of the Ring of Bells. And then if you just go inside, you'll see there's a seating area. Now that room there, apparently there's one chair in the corner they call the Cavalier's chair, because it's always freezing cold in that chair. And they've tested it with thermometers, and these ghost hunters have tested it, and they say it's always really, really cold. But the way that Edmund makes himself known to the regulars and the locals... Edward. Not Ed, what is it? Edward. What did I say, Edmund?
Yeah.
Eddie. Okay. Eddie. Let's get it right. Eddie puts a heavy hand on your shoulder. You just stood there, there's nobody near you, and he puts a heavy hand on your shoulder to let you know he's in the room with you. Now it's quite a tragic story, because Edward is supposed to be buried in the cellar underneath the cellar floor. So let's have a wander down to that cellar now. And as you can see, I've done a little bit of a representation of a cavalier. That's what they would have looked like. And that is going down the steps into the cellar of the Ring of Bells public house. Let's go on to this one for a little bit. So yeah, the cellar of the Ring of Bells. Now, in that cellar, there is a tunnel. There's a tunnel that leads to the parish church, and there's a tunnel that leads to another pub called the Boar's Head. Now, these tunnels were built because the Cavaliers used to drink in the pubs, and it was when the Civil War was on, and they were being chased by the Roundheads. I thought they are Roundheads, but they got the name because of the round, like ball haircuts, a bit like the Beatles. And that's why they're called the Roundheads. So the Cavaliers would be drinking in the pubs, like the Ring of Bells. So let's say they're in the Ring of Bells, having a drink, it's the Civil War, they find out that the Roundheads are on the way, they go down to the secret tunnel in the cellar, they start to make their way through it. However, the Roundheads have worked out where that secret tunnel comes out, and it comes out in the parish church. And then they're there waiting. The Roundheads are there waiting with their swords, and as these Cavaliers came through, they chopped them to pieces. And then apparently they buried their bodies, them pieces and little pieces, under the floor of the cellar of the Ring of Bells public house. They've actually dug down, they've excavated down there over the years, and they have found artefacts and stuff and bits of bone, but because they were chopped up so much, they can't actually find full bodies, but they believe them bodies are down there in the tunnel. Now then, we always get a serial killer on these performances, don't we? We've had, and it's usually like a lone woman. Well, this is a couple of serial killers that took over the pub, and they were the landlord and landlady of the Ring of Bells pub, and they murdered 60 people in a very unique way. Now, it used to be a bit of a boarding house. They had a very nice room upstairs with a big double bed. Any rich people, either travelling on their own or as couples, they would put them in that room. So these wealthy people would go up to the room, they'd take off their finery, they'd put it on the dressing table, they'd hang their clothes up, take the money out of their pockets, then get in bed. When they were fast asleep, they'd pull a lever, The bed would tilt at one end down to the floor. A trap door used to open and the bodies flew straight down into a vat of acid. The bodies were just done away with instantly, and then they go up to the room, take all the valuables, and they did this to 60 people. Now, there's a ghost that's supposed to pick people's pockets from beyond the grave. When you're in there, you can feel like a hand go into your pocket. When you look, there's nobody there. Now, when I was doing the research for this, I said, it sounds a bit like Les Miserables, you know, the master of the house and his woman. And it also sounds a bit like Sweeney Todd with a thing dropping into a trapdoor. So I thought I'd make a little... it's really funny. I think it's really funny. I must have watched it about 100 times. You know, when you just create something, sometimes you think, that's just genius. So I made a little film to represent what I think it might look a little bit like. So let's have a watch of it right now. Here we go.
Residents are more than welcome. Bread and sweet is occupied. Reasonable charges plus some little extras on the side. Charge them for the life. Fright tonight!
I hope you enjoyed that. I'm going to say it's played again, but it doesn't matter because you can watch it again. So yeah, I had to change the sound a little bit because when you put stuff like on Facebook and stuff, it sometimes catches on that it's a soundtrack. So that's what I thought it looked a bit like. I thought, well, I'm sure I've seen something with a bed that goes down at one end. I thought, Wallace and Gromit! And then vat of acid. I mean, I love Carry On Screaming. As I say, I used to love the Carry On films, but that was my favourite one. Frying Tonight! Superb. So that's what they used to do. Straight down a trap door, straight into a vat of acid, and that's what... So let's now walk through that tunnel, down underneath there, to the other pub that you used to connect to, which is the Old Boar's Head. Let's have a little walk through. Let's have a look at what the Boar's Head looks like. There's the sign for it. And, yes, it's a beautiful pub. Let's have a look at the actual pub. Now, stay on that picture for now, Emma. I just want to talk about it a little bit as we look at it. So, yes, it's a really old pub. And they say it dates back to 1500. Although there's some rumours it's even older than that. But 1500 they're certain about. And it's the oldest continually serving pub in the country. Now, that obviously doesn't apply anymore because of what's happened with the lockdown. Because it was continually served since 1632. So now it's having a bit of a break, but I'm sure it'll reopen again. So it's the oldest. Now, as we look at it, the road that it's on there, that used to be the main highway between Chester and York. So we've got lots of people travelling by. And I just want to talk quickly about that room that's sort of on the right-hand side of your picture. It's been added on. That's called the Sessions Room. And you can come back to me if you like, Emma. That's called the Sessions Room. And that's where they used to do court sessions there. So lots of highwaymen were tried there and sent to the gallows. And once they've been tried in that Sessions Room, they were taken down and there's a dungeon, which is now used as part of the cellar where they used to be kept before they were taken off to York to be executed. So that's the Sessions Room in there. Talking about highwaymen, Dick Turpin, there's actually a room in there called the Dick Turpin Room. He came there, well, he was brought there actually, on his way to execution at York. And he had a night there and a few last drinks before he was going off to meet his maker. So Dick Turpin's drunk there, and it's not the only pub in Middleton he's drunk at, but we'll come to that in a minute. So Dick Turpin, Bonnie Prince Charlie stayed there. And yeah, it's got all this fantastic history. There's a room, an area called, it's called the, I'm just looking for it now, let me just contact my spirit guide, Fanakapan. It's called a thrashing bay. And it's where they used to do fist fights in the thrashing bay. And it used to say that fights used to go on for up to 2 hours and people used to bet. I think it might have been an area at the back of the pub where probably the beer garden is. That was called the thrashing bay. And of course, it's haunted by a ghost. What colour's best for ghosts? Do you think it's white? Shall we have white for a ghost? White for a ghost. Let's have white for a ghost. So yes, it's haunted by a ghost of a little boy. And he was a chimney sweep's apprentice. I think I've got a pic. Oh, yeah. Well, let me just show you. There's quite a few fireplaces, but they believe this is the fireplace. I think it's the next picture coming up, isn't it? Mm-hmm. So as you can see, there's a fireplace. Now you can see it's quite a small fireplace. I think there's a lot of fireplaces in there. So they're only tiny because they're quite small rooms. And fireplaces had to be cleaned regularly because they could get toxic, and you could get the carbon dioxide coming back into your room and poisoning you. So they had to be cleaned on a regular basis. And you had the main chimney sweep, and you had an apprentice. Now the actual size, the average size of them chimneys to get up the flue was 9 inch by 14 inch. So you had to be, only young children could get up there. So it was mainly young boys were employed as chimney sweeps apprentice. And what an awful, awful job it really was. Just imagine it. It's still red hot up them chimneys. Even if you've not had the fire on for a few days, it's still red hot because them bricks contain the heat. It stays in them. So first of all, the little children were stripped naked for starters. Then they were sent up the chimney. And the way they used to get up, there were no ladders. They used to go like a caterpillar. You know, like a caterpillar wiggles its body like that. They would use their knees and elbows and make their way up the chimney slowly. So knees and elbows, touching these raw bricks, red hot, scratching the hell out. So it would just make their elbows and the knees were blood red and just open to sores. And what a horrible thing. And then up in the chimney, they got soot going into their lungs, and it was just a horrible thing that lots of them got stuck in chimneys, and that's the way they died. They got lodged in the chimneys. And then they used to have to take bricks out at the side of the chimney to get the dead child out. And that's what happened in that room. A little boy died up the chimney. They had to get the bricks out to get him out, and he haunts the old boy's head. And what he does to make himself known, he pulls on people's hair. Good job I didn't get the red bit, that's the only false bit. He pulls on people's hair. And apparently medium and psychic found out that's what he used to do when he was alive as well. It was a little thing he had, a little quirk that he liked to pull on people's hair, and he still does it from beyond the grave. Let me talk a little bit more about these chimney sweeps. It was a horrible... So if you didn't die by getting stuck up the chimney, it got even worse for you. The actual chimney sweep was... took the boy and he looked after him. So they usually come from the workhouse, so he'd look after the boy. They were usually about 4 years of age to like 6, and they weren't trapped very well, as you can imagine. Because of that rubbing their arms and knees, what they used to do at night when they got in, they used to get brine on a paintbrush, brine, like what you get your olives in, and they used to rub it on the, pour it all over the child's elbows and knees, and then stand them in front of the fireplace till it hardened. And keep doing this over and over again every night. It toughened the skin so the child could get up the chimneys without hurting themselves. They used to let them have a bath 3 times a year, Christmas, Easter and Goose Fair Day. So 3 times a year, so they'd be absolutely bloody filthy. They mainly bathed them in turpentine, not even water. And they used to get paid by every chimney they did, so they wanted these little boys to be really quick at doing the job. If they weren't, the chimney sweep would light a small fire back in the fireplace while the kids up the flue, so he'd start doing it quicker, and he'd get a long pin and start picking pricking another, child pricker, not a witch pricker this time, a child pricker, pricking the child's soles of his feet and the child's bottom, so he would go up the chimney faster. So a horrible, horrible thing. Now, if they did survive this job, when they got older, most of them died from cancer, because obviously soot is carcinogenic, and it used to affect the testicles area, and it was called chimney sweeps cancer, cancer of the testicles, and it used to cause these warts, and it was known as soot wart. Soot wart was what most of these boys went on to develop and die from as they got older. Soot wart. Horrible thing to happen. Now, talking about warts, I don't seem to have any, but I've had one or two in the past. I think I had a bit of string tied around it and pulled it off. Have you ever had any warts, Emma?
Don't think so.
No? Well, some of you out there might have had warts. And there was a guy in Middleton called the Wart Man. And you would go on to see him, and he would have a look at it. You say, look at this, wherever it was, probably under your nose if you're a witch, or on your arm or whatever, and he'd have a good poke and prod around of your wart, and he'd say, yeah, I'll give you ½ for that. And you give him ½, and then you go home, and within a week it would disappear off your arm, your nose. And he said he was magical. It would actually make them disappear, and he was called the Wart Man. So I said that Dick Turpin drank in the boar's head, so now it's time to go up the hill towards the beautiful parish church. Let's have a look now. Let's go for a little walk. Here we go, my friends. Isn't that beautiful? So we walked up from the old Boar's Head, and we walked up, there's a hillside that goes right up to the parish church. Now that parish church is medieval. It's the oldest building in Middleton. It's the oldest church in Greater Manchester. It was built in 1412 and it's Grade 1 outstanding. And it's got let's have a look at the actual tower. You might have noticed it on the video, but you see it's got like a wooden, it looks a bit like the top of a windmill really, doesn't it? And they don't exactly know why it's built like that, probably to save money they reckon, but it's quite wonderful. And there's only 3 of those in the country. So it's got a wooden tower and that's the parish church. Now, I told you about Dick Turpin drinking at the Boar's Head. There used to be another pub next door to church. Let's have a look. There's a really old picture here. I think there is. Or am I talking about something else? Is it Lowry? Yeah. No, that's right. No. What are we on there? Is that right? Well, no, hang on a minute. I've gone slightly wrong. Let's go back to where I was. Come on, come back to me. Come back to me. Now, around that area where the church is, we've just got a bit ahead of ourselves there, because I can't see what the slides are, you see. It's a strange process. We have to be mind readers, really. Around that church area, which is the Golden Cluster, which I told you about before, that's the church, the Boar's Head, the Ring of Bells, that's the Golden Cluster. And in front of the church, there's now just some steps a bit further down, just near the burial ground. And there used to be an old a chapel there. And L.S. Lowry, painting most of all the parts in Greater Manchester and everywhere really. And he went to Middleton and he walked around for a long time looking for something that he could paint. And he came across the old chapel. Let's have a look at it. And that is a painting and it's called The Chapel and the Steps. And that's what it used to look like. Just them steps parts are remaining now. The chapel was knocked down, unfortunately. Now, when he took that to be show a friend for the very first time, he took the painting and a friend came to look at it after he finished it in his mum's attic. That's where he used to do all the painting. His friend said, Mr. Lowry, you do realise that at the front of that painting, there's a dog with 5 legs. Let's have a look at it now. Just have a look. As you can see there at the front, right at the bottom, there's a dog with 5 legs. Emma said, it's not its tail, is it? But you can see its tail as well, can't you? It's definitely got 5 legs. And Lowry said, listen, if I painted 5 legs, the dog had 5 legs because I only paint what I see. So he was adamant that day in Middleton that he sketched a dog with 5 legs because the dog had 5 legs. I don't know if there is dogs with 5 legs out there. I think I've heard of dogs being born with 3 legs and stuff, but I don't know about an extra leg. But yeah, no. So that's Lowry's painting of Middleton. It was stolen, that painting, apparently, so it's nowhere to be found any longer. You can only get prints of it, but you can't see the original anywhere at all. So let's go back to that picture that we looked at a minute ago. There's an old black and white picture. Now you can see that the actual parish church is there in the background. But next to it is a white house. And that white house was in the church ale house. So again, ale house. And apparently it was a really rough drinking hall. It's where cutthroats, vagabonds and Dick Turpin drank inside that when he was on that highway between York and Chester, mugging people. That's where he used to drink. So he was brought back to Middleton towards his execution later in life, but that's where he used to drink when he was knocking about this area. Now next to that is like a fallen down sort of old building. You can just make it out. That was called a Yest House. A Yest House, which translates to hearse house. A hearse house. And inside that was a horse that was being stabled and one of these old hearse carts. Let's have a look at it. It's quite a piece. I'd like to find one of these now. Make a nice feature in the garden, that, Emma, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
It's beautiful, beautiful. So that's what they put the body in, and they pull it along with a horse in front.
Not put you in it.
No, not put me in it. So that was the hearse house, and that's what was inside it. And they were regular, a lot of people died in Middleton because they drank too much and smoked too much. So there was funerals every single day. In the summer, they were at 6 o'clock. Was it 6 o'clock? Hang on, I just have to double check that. I think it was. It was 6 o'clock. 6 o'clock till 7 o'clock in summer, and in winter 3 o'clock till 4 o'clock. So pretty much every day there was a funeral. So it would go right through Middleton. People would come out of their houses, doff their caps, pull their curtains down, whatever, signs of respect. And then there was a man though. There was a man that watched these funerals every day. Where's my pipe gone? Oh yeah. Let's go on over here. Let's show a bit of pipage. How you doing, everybody? So yes, there was a man sat outside his house, facing the burial ground of the parish church, smoking his pipe. He could be found there every day, puffing away. Now, he was a little old fella. He was a strange little old fella. This guy had a face for radio, believe me. Apparently, he was 4 foot, fully grown, and he was bent double. He had a really bad back. You know when people were like really bent over? And never ever discovered soap and water. Seems a bit like Steptoe actually when I think about it. He was very smelly. People used to give him a wide berth because he stunk to high heavens. Never had a wash in his life. And he was a recluse. Well, it's probably a good job smelling like that. But he was a strange little man with a beard, and he used to sit outside his house every day watching these funerals happening. And then at night time, he got ready to go out. Now, in the night time, he was a grave robber. He's our most famous grave robber here in Manchester and the surrounding areas. Now, I talk about him quite a lot of my different performances because he was rife all over Manchester, but his main place of nicking bodies was right outside his house. So, he lived with his brother in that house, and they had a ginnel. Now, hey, that's another point as well. How do you pronounce ginnel? We always say ginnel in Lancashire, but apparently in Derbyshire they call it a gennel, because its full title is a general passage. So the short version of general will be gennel, but we call it ginnel in Lancashire. I don't know what you call it. Some people call it a snicket. Some people call it an entry. We have loads of debates about this on the performances. But anyway, we're going to call it a ginnel tonight because that's what I'm used to calling it. So he used to have a ginnel right opposite to him. So at night time he'd dress in black and he'd start to make his way through the ginnel and up to the cemetery, the burial ground, and he'd start to look around for fresh soil. Only fresh soil was interesting because he knew then that the bodies inside there were fresh. So then he would take out a wooden spade. Now let's have a look at him. I've created a picture here of what he might have looked like. That's old Kanky in the graveyard. He's got his spade in his hand. The full moon of the moon rakers is up there in the sky. Oh, I am a genius. And so there's old Kanky doing his bit. So he's got a wooden spade. It would roughly work out where the head of the coffin would be underground. And then he'd get the wooden spade and he'd dig down quietly until he felt the wood of the coffin lid. Then he'd push down on the wooden spade till he heard the coffin lid crack. Then he would just lower a little rope down and put it around the corpse's neck and suck them out of that little hole like a worm. This is what it would have looked like. I've actually stuck his head on another picture so I brought it to life for you, you know what I mean? There's old Kanky sucking one of the bodies out of the ground. And then you just cover this up. What are you laughing at? What's funny about that? Come back to me. What are you laughing at?
Carefully you say that too.
Sucking the bodies out of the ground? Filth, you can't get the staff. Can't get the staff. Might have a competition for the new buggy lugs to operate this. Behave yourself. Yeah, so he'd suck the body out of the ground. Don't get me laughing, I can't do the performance. He'd suck the... So, all they were a little hole. It's getting worse. Let's have a drink, hang on. Let's raise our glasses. Raise the glasses, that's right. Cheers, everybody. Part 2 of this story to follow shortly. Just need to compose myself, you know. She's on one tonight, isn't she? So, yes. He'd suck the body out of the ground through that little hole with a rope around its neck. And then he'd just cover that soil just over so you wouldn't even know that had been tampered with. And then only a 10-minute walk from his house was the River Irk. Let's have a look at it. I've made a recreation of what it might have looked like. The River Irk was known as the Dirty Irk because it was absolutely filthy with pollution. It had eels in there which were so fat and big because of the oil which used to leak from the factories. Anyway, it would take the body on that boat 5 miles all the way to the medical schools in Manchester. Now, any place where there was medical schools, they needed fresh bodies to practice on all the time. What they used to do when people were executed, like at Strangeways and everywhere else, every execution body was given over for them to use. But then they decided that they'd paid their price by being executed. They shouldn't be chopped into pieces as well. So they changed that law. So they were desperate for bodies. And in Edinburgh, where there's medical schools, Burke and Hare did the same job. And in Manchester, it was down to quite a few people, but old Kanky was the main guy for the job. So he'd sell it. It was quite good money. And the police used to turn a blind eye if you were caught with a body because they knew the medical students needed the bodies. So it was a really good living to be made. So old Kanky did this day in, day out for years upon years. He died at the age of 70, did old Kanky. And funny enough, he was buried on Halloween 1882. Halloween 1882. Isn't that fantastic? What a day to be buried on for old Kanky. I've tried to look where he's buried, which graveyard, but there's no comment on it. And I think they did that on purpose because they thought he's going to be worth quite a bit of money. People that were celebrities, if you got their bodies, they were worth a lot of money, you know. Shakespeare apparently had his skull stolen and that was sold for a fortune. We've all seen Young Frankenstein, Abby Normal. But yeah, so he made some good money from that, and we don't know where he's buried because he would have been targeted and he'd probably been sold for a fortune because that was old Kanky's body. So old Kanky's buried in an unmarked grave somewhere. We don't know where he is. After he died, they searched around his house because they had to clear it out because he used to live with his brother, but his brother died before him. So he lived on his own. His house was filthy apparently, stinking and smelling and piss and poo everywhere. A bit of piss and poo for you lovers out there. Found a bit of piss and poo connection. Have we got that thing on? Piss and poo alert, there you go. I just thought of that, but apparently his house was absolutely filthy. He'd been using all sorts of things to piss and poo in. Absolutely disgusting house. But there was piles of money hidden everywhere because it was such a lucrative business. And people to this day, brave people. Now I know there's a few people watching tonight that live in Middleton. Oh yes. And at the dead of night, people sometimes follow Kanky's ginnel. Up where Kanky would have gone. Slowly at night up into the graveyard. And as soon as this lockdown is ended, I'm going. I might even take people with me because I want to see it for myself at night time. But there's a bit of video here so we can experience it virtually. Let's have a walk up Kanky's ginnel towards the graveyard, just like Kanky. Isn't that wonderful? Imagine walking up Kanky's ginnel. I'd love to. I'd love to. So my friends, that's Middleton for you. That is the Golden Cluster. I hope you've enjoyed it. I've enjoyed it. And we'll all have to go to Middleton one day. Please give generously to the tip jar if you can, because we're relying on it at the moment. Some of you, thank you for last week for buying tickets for the virtual London one. So if you haven't done that, that's still available. It's on my website. But please give generously because we really do need it to keep us ticking over until we can get back out on the streets again with all you wonderful Fleckers and Fleckettes. So talking about wonderful Fleckers and Fleckettes, I know you're all watching me tonight, but I've got a couple out there. I know loads of couple of brilliant Fleckers and Fleckettes and I love spending time with all of you. I usually go for a drink with you in all the pubs and stuff. But somebody's celebrating their 20th wedding anniversary and that's Nikki and Paul. So I've made this little thing for you. There you go, that's for you, Nikki and Paul. It's your 20th wedding anniversary. I was looking what 20 years is and it's porcelain or china. So I think a thunder jug, an old porcelain potty might be coming your way when I can leave and get to the post office. A thunder jug.
Or a Flecky Bennett mug.
Flecky Bennett mug, maybe, when we can post it off. You've got a Flecky Bennett mug, I believe he has. So I hope you've enjoyed it. It's been great fun. The next one in 2 weeks' time is going to be all about Berry. Oh, yes. And Buggerlugs tells me, because she does the research first, and then I take the research and go down different avenues and write the script and work it out and and she gets the pictures as well, but she says the stories she's got for Berry so far are outstanding. So we're going to be looking into that.
It's going to be a good one.
I'm also contemplating, because we were thinking about this, because I did the London one as a virtual ghost walk, and there is no chance, I don't think, ever, of the underground tunnels opening again in Manchester. I'm going to try to create what I used to do in the underground tunnels, using old video that I took down there and photographs, and maybe some of my audiences can give their personal accounts, but to do a virtual one from down there. So we'll see how it goes. Anyway, have we got any Q&As? Emma, any questions from anybody? We've got about 15 minutes. Come on, my friends, join in.
Let me just throw the
Let's have a look what we got.
social media links up.
Yeah, there's the social media. Have you got any questions, anybody? How are you all doing tonight? Are you all having a drink? Good, that's what I like to see. Is anybody else on Aperol Spritz, by the way? I'll tell you what it is. It's this stuff called Aperol, funny enough. It's a grapefruit liqueur, not so nice on its own, and then you equal parts that, champagne, but obviously Prosecco, because that's all we can afford, and fizzy sparkling water. And it's something else, it really is. Anybody got any questions for me, my friends? Are you looking into it now, Emma?
Yeah, so it's just people
Anybody got
chatting, no real questions.
Anybody got a question at all? Come on.
Melanie, I've put the link on the screen, if that's okay.
Melanie, the link's on the screen. Oh, yes. And it's also, all the links are on the start of this, when you watch it again on Facebook, and it's also on the website, manchesterghostwalk.co.uk, and you can also watch all the other episodes there. You've got the Gorton, you've got Ashton underline, you've got Oldham, and now you've got this one as well, Middleton. And the next one will be Berry.
Sarah Hampson wants to know if you know when you might be back in person.
Oof, I don't know. Well, there's different aspects of this, isn't there, really? Because I use places like the air raid shelters. Well, Stockport Council, for instance. Let's start with them. I use Staircase House at night time. I use Bramall Hall at night time, and I use the air raid shelters. And we don't know it's when tourist attractions are going to be allowed to open again, because it's hard to social distance. I might be able to come back with some of the on the streets ones, like the Ancoats one, the normal Ghost Walk, with a small audience, keeping 2 metres apart. It's a possibility. We just have to see what happens, really, because I don't want to put anybody at danger, and whether it'll work. It's funny, because the very last performance I did was Friday the 13th of March, an omen of a day, and some of you out there that's watching might have come on that one, and I tried to do the 2 metre space between everybody that night, and it's not easy at all. I mean, we had a laugh about it, going, oh, you're too close and stuff like this, but you know, it's difficult. And that same week as well, I did Tavern of the Dead, which is in the Haunted Room in the Shakespeare Inn, and again I tried to do the social distancing, but it wasn't easy. And again, yeah, a lot of my performances are pub breaks in various pubs, and I use various pubs for the Ouija boards and seances, and none of them are opening yet. And if they do open, it could be just a takeaway service at first, so I don't know. There's rumours that they're going to try to get theatres. I'm judging that theatre is probably a good, gauge of where we're up to. So when the theatres start to allow plays and stuff like that, maybe that's when I can start coming back with some things. But for now, it'll have to be virtual ones like this. Well, these Flecky Friday Fright Nights and virtual performances, and keep it creating that way. I've noticed that a few other people have started to do them. Some of the tour guides are starting to do some virtual ones, and good luck to them, because we've got to diversify, haven't we? Any other questions?
Yes.
Ooh.
Luke Baines wants to know where you bought your dry ice machine from.
Everything I buy on eBay, everything, because there's a date wrong with it. You just put in a PayPal complaint, you get your money back. Yeah, it's very good. Let me give you another one. I think my battery's going in it. I have a portable one. This was only about £25, you know, off eBay. You can get them dead cheap. And I actually have a portable one that I do on my performances, a handheld one, which cost me £100 to have made. And Emma uses a vape machine, and it practically the same thing for a fraction of the price. So vape machines probably do the same job. But yeah, dry ice machine, yeah, Great stuff.
Addy Goodyear, we did the underground walk with you years ago. Is there no chance of it coming back?
Which underground was it? Because I had two different undergrounds. First of all, I had under the Great Northern Warehouse, which is where the AMC cinema was, or I think it's the Odeon now. And that used to go right down 160 feet. And then the last place I used to use was under the Barton Arcade. Has he had a chance to answer to that yet? Which one that he might have been to? Well,
no, not yet.
Let me tell you about both of them. Underneath the Great Northern Warehouse, it was fantastic down there. We used to walk along all the old drain canal beds. There was houses down there, old posters from the war, all sorts of stuff. You may have seen some Urban Explorer things down there. We were all using it until somebody got injured on, not one of my tours, but another tour company. Somebody got injured on one of their tours. Health and safety got involved, and it was closed down with immediate effect. And they reckon that English Heritage would have to spend millions and millions and millions of pounds to do it up to make it a tourist attraction. And then the last place was underneath the Barton Arcade, just off Deansgate, a wonderful Georgian undercroft with some amazing stories. That's the place I'm probably going to create a virtual performance for. I know a lot of you got a chance to go on that because it opened up again for a short time. But it's all to do with developers, that one. It keeps getting different owners keep buying the Barton Arcade, keep having different ideas what they're going to do with the undercroft. They were turning it into an underground cinema. They were turning it into a nightclub, a wedding venue. I'm not sure it made any money because the actual company Brickworks, when I looked on the website last time, didn't seem to be anything there for them. So it's all about money for them.
Yeah, he said it was a Great Northern one. Great
Northern, yeah. That was a hell of an experience down there. I can't believe we used to go under there. The chambers were 100 foot high. It was incredible down there. And there was bits of water, the parts of it which were still part of the canal, which you could sail along. And it used to come out right next to the Coronation Street set. So, yeah, if you do Google Urban Explorers, there's quite a few of them in Middleton, because there's tunnels under all of Manchester. But the nearest thing I've got to that, when it reopens again, is the air raid shelters at Stockport, and believe me, they're incredible. They're actually better than the underground tunnels, I think, because it's all that distance, 2 miles. Yes.
Joshua Crowther asks, what is Goose Fur Day? It wasn't fur, it's fair.
Look, I'm from Preston, all right. I'm from Preston, okay. Goose Fair Day. Fair.
Yeah,
if you come
what's a Goose Fair Day?
Goose Fair Day, well, it was sort of a festival, really, all to do with summer and crops. If you get chance, and I'm sure we will before long, it's another one that might open up before the others, because I do one in Altrincham. Although we do finish in a bar, which is the only mortuary bar in the world, but he can't open up at the moment, obviously. But in Altrincham, there's an area called Goose Green, and that's where they used to do goose fairs. And it was like, they used to do like different blood sports, really, to entertain themselves. They used to sell geese there. It was a little farm. They used to do cockfighting, keep it clean, all those sort of things. So Goose Fair was sort of a celebration. So I think it was like a public holiday in the olden days. That's why the chimney sweep little boys. Let's have a look at them little boys. We realised just before that she didn't put that picture on. There is a picture of the little boys. That's what a chimney sweep would have looked like back in the day. Absolutely filthy. And they bathed them in turpentine, Christmas, Easter, and Goose Fair. Try to pronounce it, I just can't. 3 years at drama school as well, and I still can't speak properly. What can you do? Any other questions?
Yeah. Michael Collins asks, what do you use for your musical codpiece?
Yeah, if you've not been on one of my performances.
And then John Henderson says, I remember the night of the drowning of the original musical codpiece.
Oh, let me tell you about this.
That was tragic.
I'm not a tour guide, okay? I'm a professional actor. When I said about Steve Coogan before, I really did train at drama school. I did an acting degree for television and theatre. And then I realised that, I love performing in front of an audience. I love history. I wanted to bring the stories alive for people. What was the point? Yes. So, unlike tour guides, I use sound effects, lighting effects, dry ice as I walk around the street. So I thought, how am I going to do this? How am I going to create music as I walk around with the audience? And at first, I kept getting these. Do you remember that company called Cyberdog? They used to have one at Flecky'S Palace, and they got a big one at Camden Market. They used to do rucksacks with built-in speakers that you could plug your MP3 into. So I started one of them on my back, but they kept breaking, they were useless. Then I came across a little speaker which fitness instructors use. You know, when you when they have that little earpiece on and they have it clipped to the belt and they go, hey, hey, you know. Yeah, fitness instructors. And but I thought it looks a bit rubbish. So there was like a leather money belt, which was off Camden Market as well, actually. And the speaker fits perfectly inside it, so it looks just like a cod piece. So I've got a musical cod piece, which I call it. It's legendary now. So all my performances have my musical cod piece blasting out. Gives it great atmosphere. And Jan was saying that the original one, I had it for 10 years. The original MP3 player that plugged into the cod piece. So I've got that in my pocket, operating the cod piece in front of me. I had it for 10 years, and last year I only did one night of the Manchester River Cruise experience. And as I was getting on the boat, just before the audience arrived, I am not joking, there was a gap that was MP3 size between the boat and the side of the sidewalk. And it fell out of my hand and it went straight, didn't even touch the sides of the concrete of the path or the boat, went straight down into the water. So it drowned. I had no other MP3. Now I have a backup MP3 in case I ever do anything like that again. But I just had to entertain the audience with my vocal talents. But yeah, it died a death. So it's now in the bottom of the River Irwell. God rest its soul. Any more questions?
Yeah, Jackie Selwood says, how did you guys meet?
Well, tonight there's quite a lot of people watching, and hello Debbie and Phil and everybody else.
Hi guys.
And there's loads of people which live in Middleton, and they've been saying for years. They come on all my performances. Been saying for years. Middleton's got some great pubs with great history and things, so that's given me an idea for doing this as well. Anyway, they came on my Valentine performance a few years ago, 5 years ago probably now. Valentine 5 years ago, and they all came. We went for a drink in the Grand Central. Remember them days when you could go into a pub? And sat there, and I'd come out of a relationship about a year before, and they said, are you still single? I said, I am. They went, well, we've got a friend, she's into all horror stuff, and she's into horror makeup and things like that, and they said, we'll introduce you. So I said, well, we're not friends on Facebook, so I added her as friend on Facebook, and at that point, they ran out of the pub laughing, shouting in the background, she's your responsibility now! Ha ha ha! Good luck! As they ran, and that's all I heard as they ran off into the distance. They're probably on there right now, and you might see they put a comment up saying it's lies, but they ran off shouting, she's your responsibility now! And then her mother said that years later. But anyway, so I contacted her and we got on like a house on fire, and that's the way we've been ever since. And then she moved in with me about a year and a half ago.
Yeah.
No, it's been great.
And that's the face that I do about him every single day.
You should have seen the stuff she brought into my flat. I was very minimalist till she arrived.
Minimalist? You should have seen all the
box after box.
everywhere.
Her mother was well laughing when she brought all stuff here. And she'll be watching this. You know how many trips you made and how many boxes we had to accommodate into this.
There's still more to come.
I had to... Hang on, I need some dry ice for that. Hang on, I've got some dry ice and still more boxes to come. Oh no! I can't take it.
Oh God.
No, I used to have 2 double bedrooms, and now there's only 1 double bedroom. The other one's Emma's room. Oh
it's
yes.
the TV room.
TV room, yes. But I've had a great time tonight. I hope you have too. I hope you're all doing all right. I really do miss you so much. I have the best people that follow me in the world. And if you've not been in on a performance, hopefully you're going to come and join me later on when we get back to some kind of normality. And if you've enjoyed it, once again, please give generously to the virtual tip jar. If you don't know how to access it, just go Flecky Bennett in a search engine. It takes you to my website, and then you'll see Facebook Live tab, and it's all on there. If you want to pay by PayPal or you just want to donate by debit or credit card, also on there is a link to the virtual ghost walk. Even though these are kind of virtual ghost walks, these are a bit of fun and a bit of laughter. Well, the other one is fun and laughter as well, but I tried to recreate my London performance perfectly by walking the street in order. So that's on there as well. What time are we on?
We are on 11 minutes past 9.
11 minutes past 9. Well, we said One more question. Has anybody else got one more question? Have I thrown you under the bus there, Emma?
Where did you get the chair from?
This chair here.
That's from Ruth Green, yeah.
Oh, Ruth. Well, look at this. Can we show it any better?
Yeah, put the white light on.
Hang on. Let me see if I can show you a little bit better. But I mean, better like this.
Steady.
Oh, yeah, that works. Can you see the top of it there? Oh. Now, it's called a porter's chair. The reason I loved it, because it's got a big hood on it, connected or built into one piece. And I love it because it looks a bit like, like in the Hammer horror films where they ride along in horse and carts. It looks like one of them, and it's antique green. Let's put the green back on. It's antique green leather. And I've wanted one for, well, all my life really, since I saw the Hammer horrors with the horse and carriages. I thought, I'd love one of the actual old carriages that they used to ride in. This is the nearest thing you can get. As you can see, you can sit back in it. This is where I sit of a daytime watching the hoovering and cooking and cleaning. No, it isn't. But I sit in here, and it's called a porter's chair because down between my legs down here is a little cupboard at the bottom. And these were found in hotel lobbies of the best hotels. And apparently the Middleton Hotel in Manchester, that has some of these in the actual lobby, or it used to have. So it was the porter of the hotel used to sit in this. And the reason it's got a big hood is because they're right next to the door of the hotel, so it could get quite cold, so they could keep sheltered. Their hat and coat was kept in the bottom cupboard when they were on duty. And it's a porter's chair. Now, they are thousands and thousands and thousands of pounds. But if you go onto a website, and I can't think, is it called Chesterfield?
I think is it Sofas for You?
I think it's called sofasforyou.com. And they're in Blackburn. So if you put Blackburn Chesterfields, they make them in Blackburn, right? And they make them for a fraction of the price that they are other places. And they're handmade. And you have to wait sometimes like 8 to... Well, I don't know how long you have to wait now with the current situation. Yeah. Well, they could be back in the factories because they might be able to social distance quite easy. But they have a 50% sale on all the time. They're still a bit pricey. And I put it on a credit card with, zero balance. So I could just pay it off in instalments. You can pay it with them in instalments as well. But it is wonderful. It's not very comfortable, I'll give you that, because it's all this kind of material. But I've got an extra cushion on top. So that's a Chesterfield porter's chair. Wanted one all my life, and it's the only thing I really, apart from Emma and my family and you lot, it's the only thing in here I really, really love. And as you walk through the main door, it's the first thing you see right at the end. I hardly ever sit in it until I started doing these. I'm glad I started doing these because it gave me a use for it, because it's too beautiful to sit in. But now, that's my Chesterfield. Anything else?
No, I don't think so.
So, my friends.
I just wanted to say that I will get round to everyone's comments. Obviously, it's difficult to do while I'm behind the scenes, but I always go through after we finish broadcasting.
Emma will go through it, and if any of you want to send anything personal to me, just send it on Messenger, and I'll answer you when I get a chance.
Inbox me
and
as well.
Give generously, and we're going to sit. Is it still blowing a gale, do you think? Because I fancy sitting outside for a bit, watch the natives. So, my friends, until we meet again in 2 weeks' time for Berry, let's have a bit of Flecky song. Hey!
It's Flecky, it's Friday, it's Flecky Bennett Friday, it's Flecky, it's Friday, it's Flecky's Fright Night.